Dave Corinth here. Welcome to my shop. I was just tuning up this number 7 joiner plane when my daughter came into the shop and handed me this box, which, as you can see, it looks pretty rough. Inside of this is a number 4 smooth plane, or a number 4 size smooth plane that I bought on eBay. And it took a while to get here. It got kind of lost in the shipping process, which seems to be a pretty common occurrence nowadays. But it finally made it, and we're going to unbox this thing. But first, I want to show you what I saw when I saw this plane on eBay. So this was listed as a vintage smooth plane Miller's Falls Nice 10202. Not sure what the 10202 is, but it looks like they took the photographs outside, so they should be nice. The description was a little bit helpful. Could have had more info, but it did mention the adjustment screw was missing. And in the first photo, you can see it definitely has some surface rust. The knob looks a little beat up, but there's no major cracks, and it does have that patented two-piece lever cap that Miller's Falls came out with in 1929. And it appears to have a decent amount of nickel plating on it. And here I'm trying to get a good look at the finish on it, and it looks pretty good, and you can see that that depth adjuster knob is indeed missing. But it still has some gun blue on the frog adjustment tab and screw. And you can tell that tote is rosewood. It's always nice when they take a good picture of the sole, and you can see that it is a smooth sole plane. And as I zoom in on the mouth, I don't see any obvious cracks. And here's a good close-up of the frog, and it looks like that's a good place to store the chip breaker screw. As you can see, it's nestled in that little recess. And since they took these photos outside, you can get a really good idea of what rust is on the parts. Okay, now that you've seen what I saw, let's see what's inside this box. Now, in defense of the seller, this was not the seller's fault. My daughter, before she brought it to me, actually started to open it. And my wife thankfully stopped her because she knows I like to shoot these videos. But this still is not a very good job of packaging. I don't know what the red tape is. Looks like there was probably a label here and it kind of weakened the box, so they put that tape on there. But I don't hear anything rattling around, so it sounds like it's wrapped pretty good. So let's go ahead and open this thing up and see what she looks like. Oh yeah, approved box cutter, by the way. These things work great for this. Oh, go ahead. Oh, there goes. Styrofoam, okay. Cardboard, newspaper, 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 and there's the plane. That is not a very good way of packaging a 100-year-old cast iron plane, but let's see what it looks like. Well, at least they saran wrapped it. All right, let's get a better look at this thing. So here is the plane in the flesh, or should I say cast iron, because there's no flesh on this. I hope there's not, at least. I went ahead and cut this tag off. The tag was kind of stuck to the iron. I think that's just a inventory number from the seller. But this is a Miller's Falls number 9. And I believe it's a Type 2. I'm going to go into that in just a second. But the reason they call these number 9s is because Miller's Falls didn't follow the Stanley numbering system. They followed Sargent's numbering system. So if you had a number 9, that meant it was 9 inches long, even though I know this is 9.5. But a number 10 would be a 4.5, a little bit longer, certainly wider. A number 5 was considered a 14, but it was like 13.5 inches. So they typically just went with the length as the number on their bench planes. They didn't follow that on the block planes, I can tell you that for sure. So let's get into this thing and see if there's any damage. I didn't see any in the pictures, so I'm not going to expect to find any. But the sides look good. There is no number there. Okay, so on the Type 1s, they didn't put the number on the cheek. They put them on the body here, the number 9 back here. And this one doesn't have a number on it. So this could be an early Type 2. And the other side, yeah, that looks good too. I don't see any damage. And of course, the most important part is, good God, look how far that iron sticks down. The mouth. So let's look at it. These are just like the Stanley Baileys. They're prone to crack right along here. And I don't see any cracks there. Again, being a type 2, not a type 1, or which if it was a type 1, you definitely know it. But this little heel tab is actually part of the sole now. On the earlier ones, this is actually raised up and doesn't come in contact with the sole. So another little feature on these. So let's take a look at the tote and the knob. The tote and knob are both rosewood, and according to Miller's Falls, these are Cocobolo rosewood. So I'll let you be the judge of that. But they put a heavy, I mean a heavy finish on these. And I believe it's shellac, but you can see how, I mean, that's thick. And it kind of obscures the grain. And I'm not a big fan of that. I would, unless it was in a really good condition, this one's not. I mean, you'll never get this to look, you could spend a lot of time working on that to get it to look decent, but we're going to have to refinish the tote and the knob, and the knob looks even worse. My gosh. But, yeah, what do you expect? This thing's 80 years old, I think. So let's go ahead and get this thing broke apart a little bit. There is the lever cap. And this is a type 1 lever cap. Okay, so this is probably an early type 2 that has some blend features. So on the type 1s, they have these little interlocking tabs right here. See how this comes down? There's a little tab that sticks out. On the type 2, they eliminated that. And it also has 334A stamped into it. So that is definitely a type 1, and it's I think it's after 33, 32, somewhere in that range. They started to put the number on the type 1, so this is probably a, it's a type 1 lever cap. That means this is probably an early type 2 plane. So lever cap looks great. Nickel plating on that, I'd say it's probably 80% or better. I mean, that'll clean up good, which is one of the reasons why I was willing to take a chance on this one, because these things, when they don't have their nickel plate on, they look awful. So I always like to find them when they have a lot of nickel plating left, and this one looks pretty decent. I think we can clean that up good. And it has all of its red paint. So that's good. Let's look at the iron and the chip breaker. So here is the iron, and another feature that I'm looking for. There's the logo. It doesn't say solid tool steel. And this little triangle here doesn't touch up there. So that tells me this is an early type 2 or type 1 iron. And I don't see a whole lot of rust on there. I mean, it's, yeah, that'll come out, I think. So that's in decent shape. When you look at it from this way, from there, you think, oh, that's going to be awful. But really, that looks good. I'm tickled pink with that. And I don't think it's been sharpened much either. Good deal. So now let's look at the chip breaker. And that looks good too. I mean, yeah, it's got some rust on it, but again, this thing's 80 years old or 90 years old. Yeah, almost 90 years old. And it looks good and straight, as I believe. Let's see what the iron looks like. Oh yeah, iron and chip breaker, I can make those work real well. So you'll notice there's no chip breaker screw because it is right there. Good place to store it, I guess, rather than putting it where it belongs on the plane. That would make more sense, but hey, to each their own. So this is the frog, and there is a difference between type 1 and 2 frogs. This is definitely a type 2 frog. This is a square, and on the type 2s, or type 1s, this is kind of rounded, and there's not a lot of meat around the lever cap screw. So, oh, it has type 1 screws. Those are Philister screws instead of the panhead, so those are type 1 screws. Cool. And it doesn't have, let's get this frog off and then I'll show you that. That'd be a lot easier. Where did my screwdriver go? And we'll just use this one. Hopefully this is going to come off easy. Let's find out. Oh yeah, that's not even on there. Someone's had this off recently. Yeah, there it went. Yeah, somebody's had that off. Well, I say that. Goodness gracious. Come on. Do I have those loosened all the way? Yes. Won't that come out? Oh, there we go. Okay. So take those off. On a Type 1, which is what this is partially, there's no indents. On the Type 2, they put two little indents right here and here. For something to do with that pin, I guess. I don't know. But there's just two little indents, and these don't have that. Now, it doesn't have the cast iron yoke. That would be indicative of a Type 1, but I don't mind that. That's just, ugh. Well, we can scissor it. That won't hurt nothing. But I don't have a brass adjustment knob. And I saw that in the photos, and it's not something that really bothers me because I have a spare. Haha. See there? So I can just put it on like so. Come on, get on there. Well, I say I can. Ooh, that's tight. Oh, that's real tight. I don't like that. Why is that so tight? I know the threads on this are okay. Oh yeah, you can see right here? Well, right there. Those threads are mushroomed. So I've got extra studs like this, so we'll probably have to pull this stud off and put a new one on it, or at least another one on it, because you can get these studs off of Dunlaps or Craftsman's, and they're identical since Miller's Falls made Dunlaps and Craftsman's. So that's not going to be an issue, and I do have spares of those laying around. It does have a frog adjustment tab. They never had that on the Craftsman or the Dunlaps, but they do on the Miller's Falls, and these are gun blued, and that one still has some of its gun blue. The finish on these, the body, and of course on the frog is not Japanning. It's enamel. So these were not Japan, these were enameled. And I don't really, honestly, you can't tell the difference. They both look great as far as I'm concerned. This one looks like it's got some paint here, which is kind of mandatory on old planes. It's definitely been used. You can see where some of the finish is worn off here and on these high ends. So this one saw a little bit of use right here. I mean, there's nothing there left, just cast iron. But I think it's in pretty decent shape. I don't see any obvious damage. And it has a Type 1 lateral. On the Type 2, they put a solid disc there, not this little folded over number. As you can see, that's just folded over. So this is definitely a Type 1 lateral. And it doesn't have the little recesses there for a Type 2. So this was an late Type 1, early Type 2. So cool. And then, of course, the body, man, that Japanning, the enamel on that looks pretty good. I mean, that's not bad at all. I mean, it's got to be 90+%. You'll find out more when you start to clean it, because if there's anything loose on there, it'll come off. It does have, again, the frog adjustment tab. I wonder how crusted that bad boy is on there. Let's find out. See if that even moves. Oh, yeah. And that ain't no problem at all. Good deal. Okay, so now let's look at the tote and the knob. So there is the knob, and it doesn't have those little, on the Type 2s they introduced those little little nibs right here to let the knob seat better, but this doesn't have those. That's unusual for a Type 2. Definitely a crossover feature. And then on the tote, let's see. Okay, that's going to come out good. These both do have brass waist nuts. The Type 3s, you'll start to see some of those one-piece rod screws or even steel nuts on there. But that's in decent shape. It's got a little bit of boogering up on the end, but that's okay. And there, again, there's the body. So I don't see any damage to it at all. It doesn't have the number on it, though, which that would have been on a Type 2. And it doesn't have that. So this is probably an early Type 2. Type 2s were from 1936 to 41, I believe. So this one's probably an early Type 2. And I think it's in restorable condition. I mean, I'm going to get this thing tuned up and put this bad boy to use. So let's put it back together. So I'd had this plane on my watch list for quite some time on eBay. And I finally decided to make them an offer. They were asking $39 for it, and I offered them $25 just so I could see where they were at. And they took it with $14 shipping. I'm into this thing after tax about 42 bucks. So I think I did pretty good on this one. Would have liked to have gotten it a little cheaper and maybe with an adjustment knob, but I knew I had one, so I wasn't too concerned about it. And I do have a replacement stud, so not too concerned about that either. I'm going to do some more research on this and find out if I can get a closer proximity on the date, and then we'll get this thing tuned up and see how well she works. So comment, like, and subscribe, and thank you for watching. And this is the culprit of all that barking. Reba, you doing, what's the matter, baby? Coyotes didn't get you. No, them coyotes didn't get you. Look here, hey. There we go, see? Yeah, we're okay.